The moon in Leo in the natal birth chart is a very auspicious placement for attention, for fame, for all kinds of things that get looked at in very, very good ways. For seeking the attention, for having the attention, for having all kinds of attention. And really, really getting that very, very clearly within what is going on with what you are doing. And that is also the quality of being very, very proud of yourself and in your sense of pride and in your sense of shining out very, very well. The moon in Leo is about expressing your creative self and shining your light, not let anyone take it away from you. As I was prepping for this video, I was in kind of some contemplation about something in my life that happened the last couple of days, and I was reading, I was understanding the meaning of the Leo moon, and what it really comes down to is there was some comments that were made back a couple days ago that I had were very much put together. I'm doing this in the evening, so I'm a little bit tired. So my mind isn't going to be as sharp. I'm doing this because of something that comes up with my family on Wednesday. So I'm doing this early so that I don't have this to do when I get home Wednesday. Back from that place that I'm going to, because I'll be tired at that point. I won't want to do it. So if I am a little bit, if I don't make a whole lot of sense, or I repeat myself, or if I'm not being very clear, then it's the evening. It's that time. But so anyway, I was thinking about just actually, and I bring this up all the time as one of my South Node tendencies to leave behind, is getting involved with what everybody else is doing. And I think that with this placement of the Leo moon, it is really, really about being very, very conscious that, we're all soul beings. And we all have something that we want to express. We all have light and joy and creativity and what we define as prosperity to us. And what makes us feel good. What makes us feel secure and happy. What makes us feel abundant in our lives. What makes us feel secure within ourselves with what we are deciding to put out into the world. And, it isn't about, with what we're doing, it really, really isn't about, judging others or taking others down for what they want to do from their hearts. What they feel is right for them to do. And I don't think that we need to assume things about others that may not be true and, point all these judgments about others with what they want to express from their hearts. One of the things about Leo Moon is you're authentically expressing your heart, but not judging others for expressing what they want to express from their hearts. From their souls. What makes them feel good about themselves. And it's about honoring that. And really not being overly concerned with other people's business. Like if I have something to say about anyone, I will not comment on their thing. I will do a separate video on my own channel where I can openly share my thoughts. And the ones who will like the video will like it and then comment, and then I'll respond back to them. I'm just eliminating any tendency of being involved with others' business that works for me, because I think very, very black and white. So my sort of new rule is, instead of sort of telling others that they are not worthy to do exactly what it is in their heart that they want to do, what they feel is right for them to do, I will make a video where I will discuss my feelings and thoughts about that, as opposed to telling them directly. It's kind of like, where, you don't say certain things to just strangers that you don't know to your face, but you do it, to the ones who will listen and to the ones who will understand and hear about it and support you with what you're doing. And to the ones who, will get it in your own way, and I think, with comments, I think we need to have a face-to-face video comment where the person's talking to the person on the video, in a video form to this person, and not necessarily writing to them, because I think that would be more real, more authentic. So I will not be commenting on anybody else's videos from now on, because I don't want to give in to the tendency, like astrology and self-awareness go hand in hand. They cannot be separated. And I am aware that I have the tendency to want to kind of be in others' business and not be focused on my own life. So I'm going to be breaking that tendency fully in my life. And, permission for others to, do whatever they feel right for them to do. They have freedom and autonomy over their lives, and we can't tell them, what to do, because we don't have control over them. And it isn't right to sort of tell someone and direct somebody else how to live their life and what decisions that they need to do. And so, I was looking at myself very, very honestly, and this relates to the Leo Moon conversation of shining in your own spotlight, of not dominating others, in ways where you feel like they have hurt or betrayed you with what they are doing with it, what they authentically want to do. They're really not doing anything to you. You're the one taking it as is. And so, we must feel secure enough in ourselves to not give in to feelings of jealousy and anger and resentment and just dislike of what people want to do, what they feel is right for them to do in their own lives, with what they want to do when it comes to their actions and what they want to put out into the world, and whatever, so that has been fully integrated, that I have integrated that. And for those who want to hear my actual voice speaking, hearing the real me with what I have to say authentically about somebody and what they do, then you can hear that, and you can come to me, and you can either like it or dislike it, or support me, and you can comment. I won't comment. I'll comment back to you because you're commenting on my own channel. While I encourage comments, I won't comment. And the whole thing was about having a membership And I don't support having a membership and charging for your videos, but it does take some, understanding and humility to understand that, it's okay for others to do it, even if you don't approve of what they are doing. They can still do it, and you don't have to, give them grief about what they do, and, and why they do it, and, because they do it for reasons, and, not having to engage with what they do if you don't like it. So I give myself permission to say exactly what I want to say to certain people that I would write out in comments on my own channel, in my own way, my own voice, my own videos. This is me, finding a way around this tendency of getting involved in other people's business, but doing it in my own way with my own channel. How you are still concerned about others, but you are not talking to them, or directing all of your anger and dislike and negativity towards them. When I hear those, tell me, oh, you should be this or you should be that, you're, this, and you should consider others or whatever. Like, I think that when I say it, it helps, because it's like, I can say it for myself, and it comes from me, and so I naturally believe it. I naturally want to, subscribe to it, go along with it, because it comes from me. It gives me a sense of power, and it helps me to personally understand and agree from that. So I believe in living from your soul, authenticity, personal sovereignty, and compassion. And, all of that. And we don't need to get involved in others' business. So I don't want to see any judgmental comments with whatever I decide to do on my channel. I mean, I may very well not do a membership, or I may have a membership where every little video is ad-free and every single video is on my channel. That's what I believe, if I would have the membership. And if anyone comments rejecting me of that, I will show empathy and say, I know how you feel. I did this too, and this and that. However, this and this and this what I've learned about this. And just honestly letting the person know that it's okay if others do what they want to do, and others do this. Let them. Let them. It is really what I want to say. Letting others shine in their own light. Letting others do what they authentically want to do. And, that's really, the piece of wisdom that I could share in a episode of the Real Me podcast, but I don't want to do separate videos. It's too much time, too much work. And, the bubble's going to be burst tomorrow. I'm probably not going to be feeling it. So I just thought I'd, get this off my chest now as a way of just expressing, like, before I even get into this episode, I just want to just talk about this, share this. Because everyone is worthy of living a life totally authentic to them, and, shining in their own light and all these kind of things. And if I have anything rejecting to anyone, I will give myself permission to talk about it to those who will want to hear about it. Because I want to be authentic. I am expressing myself in my own way, not on somebody else's channel, not in writing to them, not getting into their business. So I'm trying to find ways around this that work for me, where I am following and releasing the tendencies from my South Node and my North Node to a T, the best I can do in my own, capacity for myself. I know that I naturally reject those who have memberships. I naturally am rejecting of that. And I know that about myself, and I will always feel that. However, they are perfectly, entitled to do whatever they feel that is right for them to do. And, and that's really what it comes down to. Enjoy what they have already available, and, really, just stop always being in their business. I will not express any opinion whatsoever to anybody in the comments. Like I'm not commenting on videos again. I'm not commenting on videos again. I'm not commenting on posts again. I'm done with that, because that's getting into others' business, and I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to burn bridges with anyone. I don't want to have any bad relationships with anyone. So I will keep my feelings to myself to them, but I will openly express them on this channel in my own way, using my own voice. That's what I will say. So I thought that I would just get that out and express it before I even get into this. So let's delve into this. As soon as I get this done, I'm going to probably have to, go to bed. I want to do this so bad, but I, don't want to, I know it's going to be like, going home. I'm not going to be in the mood to do this. I'm going to want to relax and chill out. So, is considering others in the point of just letting them be who they want to be. And, that's really what, is all, it is all about. And that is a lesson for Leo to learn, is to allow others to shine in their own light. So I think this is a very, very good segue into this episode. So, the moon in Leo, delving into this. The moon in Leo is very, very warm in its nature. Incredibly warm, incredibly, heartfelt and all that kind of thing like that. That's what it is. It's warm in all those kind of ways. It is really, really, there's a drama to it. There's a drama to, Leo energy that's very, very, remarkable. They want to be dramatic. They want to be, outspoken. They want to be, the drama kings or, queen. Well, not necessarily. They're all about, really what it comes down to it is, is acting, really, is being very, very strong in your own creative self-expression. What do you want to creatively express? What is in your heart that you want to express so strongly? Painting, music, singing, dancing, whatever it is. And creating, dancing, and doing all these kind of things. Painting. Could be music. I mean, whatever creative thing that your heart desires is really what this is about. Whatever is creative. Whatever you think is a very, very creative thing. So creative self-expression. It could be painting. It could be, as I said before, music. Making videos. Like, my astrology videos. I love to make my astrology videos. This podcast is what I'm passionate about. And I love doing it, and I want to do it in my own way, on my own terms, and all those kind of things like that. So, Um, Leo moons, there's this need for Leo moon to be noticed, to be seen, to be recognized, by all. Leo moons want you to notice them, want you to see them, want you to validate them for their efforts and validate them for what they are doing, themselves. They want to be recognized for how creative they are and how how they shine in their life. How Leo moons want to shine in their light. They want to be the star. They want to be the center of attention. They want to be loud and proud and flamboyantly and authentically and at best genuinely themselves. Leo at best, doesn't put on airs of wanting to be somebody that it's not. At best, Leo moon is very, very, good. At just being who they are. Being the proud version of who they are and who they really, really want to be in this life. Is someone who is expressive, who is bold, who is courageous, who is confident, who is all these things. So Leo moons want to be noticed. They want recognition from that. They want validation from others, recognizing how special they are, how beautiful, how radiant, how amazing they truly are. So Leo moons. Leo moons, want to, they want to be seen. They want to be seen, for who they are, as, authentic individuals. And that's how they want to be, is, seen for themselves. And, wanting attention wasn't necessarily a good thing. It was, probably rejected from that in early life, especially if you have Saturn and Leo. I discussed Saturn and Leo in a previous podcast episode. Wanting attention was probably something that you were denied. Like, oh, it's bad to seek attention. It's bad to seek validation. It's bad to seek, if you seek attention, then you're a narcissist. Or if you seek attention, then maybe your sense of play and joy was mocked in your early life, and it wasn't open and recognized and loved for what it was. And there's this need for validation, this need for others to validate what you do and what you say, with how, needing to make it known to the world how special you are. And it's this insatiable need to puff up your ego and to be very, very, insatiable when it comes to how you shine in the world and how you want to put yourself out in the world and how you want to be in the world, with how strong you really are within yourself. But is it coming from a self-centered place, or is it coming from an ego-centered place, Leo? Where is it coming from, Leo? Where is it coming from, within yourself? Is it coming from this need to be bigger and better than others and to take away the spotlight from everybody else, to be the star center because you don't feel secure enough in yourself? Or is it to be, is it to be, just generous from a heart-centered place and expressing your true heart's desire, saying yes, answering your heart's true calling in your life? And, this is what it comes down to with Leo moon. Is, someone with a Leo moon sort of hides their feelings away, sort of hides all these emotions, all these, proud, expressive, flamboyant emotions, and this isn't, like, openly express these emotions. Like, openly express how you feel. Openly express your passions. openly, you have permission to openly express your feelings in this life. And let them know how you feel. Let them know how you truly feel and what you truly want to feel and experience. In this life, with not hiding what you feel and think under a bushel, but to let it out, to be very, very bold and very, very, forthcoming and straightforward with that. Those feelings, like not hiding, what you feel in your heart, but expressing your passions in your own way. You show your strengths, to others. And, you want to generously give. Now, you're sort of, being told, like, how to be and what to do, as opposed to really, figuring yourself out with what you want to do. It's about, what this comes down to is figuring out not what everybody is telling you to do, not what everybody is demanding. You should do this. You should be in this career. You should, do this. You should hide your feelings. You should da. What do you want to do from your heart? What do you want to express from your heart that you feel so passionate about, that you feel so strongly about, that you just want to let out and be let go and be free? What do you want to express? That's the real question with Leo moons. So yeah. So whatever comes up, I have the freedom to express this. And I'm not going to do it to any specific person other than my own audience and other than to family and the ones that I know. The ones who follow me, the ones that I know. I'm going to keep it to that. I don't want to cross boundaries. I don't want to, going back to what I said earlier. So I'm trying to figure things out in a way where, where it's true for me, yet I'm also not, again, poking in and poking and prodding toward others, because I don't believe in telling others what to do and doing all that. And so if I am doing that, I want to reframe that. So, figuring out, what you want to do, what you want to do authentically. What is it in your heart that you want to do? And, there's this need here to please authority figures, in your life. There's this need to, to please everybody, to please, the ones who, it's like, there's a need to please these people. Please the ones you look up to, that that told you that you couldn't be who you wanted to be, that you're not worthy of being this, you're not worthy of expressing your creative self, that that you're this and you're that. It's like, you don't have to please those who don't give you the space and let you be who you truly want to be. You don't have to please the ones who don't get you, the ones that you don't like, the ones that you don't agree with, the ones that want you to dim your light in order to fit into what they want, in order for them to fit in with, they want, the person that they want you to be. So, there's this need here to please these people, to cater to them. And, I'm saying very, very honestly, you don't need to do this. You can live a sovereign kind of life. And so it's not necessary to do this. So maybe you're giving something to somebody else, who wasn't really worthy of seeing you, before you did something major. Before you did something, very, very, significant, before you express yourself. And if you put, if you, like on social media, for instance, if you put something that you want to express out there, then the ones who like it will come and find it and support your channel and support what you want to do. So, that is really, the truth of it is, doing something like that really, really strongly with, what you want to express. And so it's about no longer being interested in, just attempting to be who you truly are and actually being who you are. And, not being interested in the ones who don't accept you for who you are authentically. Not giving into the ones who aren't interested, in whom, in you, for whom, you already are, with what you are doing. That is very, very important. Not, the ones who are not into you, the ones who are not interested in what you have to give are just not, right for you. The ones who disapprove are just not right for you. And that says nothing about you and everything about them. One of the things that I did pick up from a channel that I used to follow is if somebody tells you, oh, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, you should, what they're saying is, I wouldn't do that. I don't believe in this. I wouldn't do that. I think this. I feel this way. Me. Instead of directed at you, they're basically giving them a piece of themselves with what they are saying. I find that so profound that, that is a truth, and I think that is, profound, that I learned that and that I understand that in my own life and in my own experience. And so it's about receiving love, being open to receive all the love in the whole wide world, all the love and all the heart-centered love, and all of what that love is, receiving the love bright and loud and very, very huge for, what you're doing. So, it's really, really about, receiving love. Being open to love, being open to, all those kind of things, really, where that comes right down to, like, you're not, yeah, exactly. I don't want to keep hashing out and being stuck on this one point. Just be open to receive love. love, you don't have to always give. Well, you are worthy of receiving love and receiving the attention, being worthy to shine and all of that. And so it's about not holding in your true love that you feel for others. Not feeling, holding in, your true love and what you truly have to give in terms of your love. It's about inspiring others. Inspiring them. You're inspiring them to be their authentic selves, to shine their light, to express their creativity, and, express feelings in a generous way. Express the feelings in this kind of way where they're giving themselves to the work, to, the world and, who they are. So, so it's about, having, emotional security, from recognition and creative self-expression. That's what it comes, down to, is, being, secure within yourself, that you are your creative, authentic self, and you're not expecting all the validation from that you are shining in your own light regardless of that. So it's about feeling emotions, sort of like Leo moons express their emotions in a very, very grand way, and there's this need to do this because they don't want to feel lonely. They want to feel like they want to feel connection to others. They want to feel like others are related to them, others are close to them, others are bonding with them, and they want true love from others. And in order to do that, you sort of have to reach across the aisle and, speak out and, say, I'm feeling these things, I want to express these things. And so you're, getting responses from that back, and you're, you're really, opening yourself up to others, and not being willing, not being, not, holding yourself back when it comes to expressing how you truly feel, and expressing your feelings, with, in a way of inspiring and entertaining others. And there's this need for, Leo moons to perform and create something, and receive. They want appreciation. They want validation for their emotions, and so you don't experience emotions, in a quiet way. You sort of fully feel, like, your emotions are very, very visceral. Your emotions are very, very intense, very, very strong, and you feel them, and you express them very, very openly and proudly, and in an intense kind of way. Where you're, very, very open about those emotions. And so self-respect is, very, very, huge. When it comes to self-respect, that is what they are doing, is having, self-respect, being very, very, important to them. Self-respect related to how others, respond to you. With what you have to express. It's very, very easy with this moon placement to feel judged, to feel like others are judging you, others are criticizing you with your feelings, that you're not worthy of feeling your emotions, that they're, judging you for expressing yourself or feeling whatever it is that you need to feel. So, you draw others to you, and, you have this way of pulling others to you, attracting others to you. And you inspire them to be their authentic selves, express themselves from a place of true authenticity. And, the need for others. There's this need, for your efforts, of all that you have to give, of all that you have to put out in the world for it to be acknowledged and celebrated. And this exchange of energy that others give you, this pride, this validation, this recognition, really, really fills you up and really, really allows you to, it does enhance, your own sense of feeling good about yourself naturally, as encouragement would, and it does help you to express yourself fully. But, but don't be reliant on it. Give yourself permission, love yourself, and validate. Give yourself permission, before you just seek all the attention elsewhere and seek all that validation to. So that's a really, really key lesson for Leo to learn. So it's about dealing with emotional difficulties. Dealing with these difficulties, when it comes to, turning them into, creative expression, dealing with the difficulties of emotion that come up, with things like drama, performance, supporting others, and understanding similar, different experiences that others have. It's about understanding emotions through, you can express your emotions through like art and drama and other creative things that allow you to explore and openly express your feelings. Like, what outlet do you want to express your feelings? Like, what outlet do you want, to openly express yourself? You need your creativity on an emotional level to be celebrated, celebrated and recognized. There's this need for, creativity to, for it to be, and it's that, don't let others dim your light. Don't let others dim, how truly radiant and how truly special you are. Give yourself the space and permission to feel so secure in yourself to do your own thing, live your own life on your own terms, being authentic to who you are, not letting anyone, tell you that you can't be exactly who you are and who you want to be in this life. And dimming how, and that's what it's really about. So it is about not feeling, there's this quality with like, not settling for anything less than you deserve, not settling for others to not allow you to express your creative gifts. And when you express your creative self, you give your heart to others and you need validation. There is this need for validation here. This need for validation, for how generous you truly are. For how, you want to be generous. And the best thing about Leo is that you're expressing from your heart. You're generous. You're loud and proud, and you're not willing to hold in your own authentic light for anyone. And that's really the special thing with, Leo. So, yeah. So, not giving your heart and that really is what it comes down to. My thought process is all, in the glue, so to speak. Because of the time of day that I'm doing this video. But anyway, showing who you are generously, doing something not because you need the validation, but because you want to express it generously from your heart. And there's this need for others to recognize who you are on an emotional level. You want to be warm, you want to be a creative self. Your emotional well-being doesn't depend completely upon what others appreciate for you. And again, comes back to validating who you are. Feeling good inside yourself, feeling a secure sense of self where you don't need anyone else to validate who you are and who you want to be, feeling good inside yourself with that kind of thing. um, where you need for where this needing to steal the spotlight. At the lowest manifestation of Leo is a narcissist, is somebody who that's the lowest level of consciousness and frequency for a Leo is you know uh um is to be attention seeking, stealing the spotlight and all that. So that is really not the best way to go. That's not the high road of Leo, as I've said before. So, controlling, it's about controlling, where, there's this need to control others. This need to, always be, because Leo is a fixed sign, it wants to be control, but it's about separating, where you end and others begin. Having control of your own life and not letting anyone tell you how to live your life and what this and that, but also respecting others and not telling others how to, this is part of authenticity, is living a life true to who you are and not telling others how they should live their life and what they should do, and because that's them, and again, that's their business and that's what they want to do authentically, and we shouldn't tell others how to live their own lives. And that's actually a very, very humbling lesson for Leo to learn, and I'm in my progressed moon in Leo phase right now, and that is a lesson that I have learned and that I am learning within myself, and that is the kind of shadow, within myself that I'm learning. And it's a good time too, because the South Node is going to be entering Leo this summer, and so that's really going to be bringing up all those who are in their egos, all those who are narcissistic and all that, and controlling and domineering and all that. And to heal that Leo, we're leading towards Aquarius, doing things in our own way without needing validation, thinking of the good of the all, by being our own creative light. We want to use the high road of Leo. The high road of Leo is being your creative light and shining your own creative light. In order to then serve humanity. You are serving humanity by being your creative, authentic self. So, it is controlling, in a way that isn't, not controlling. Basically being in control of your own destiny, not, having not control of, others' destiny. And, it's really, this is a thing that's just so humbling for me to say and understand. If you would not want others telling you what you want to do in your life, then don't tell others what to do in their own life, and don't boss them around with what, to do. If you want others to see the radiant and true you, and, and allow you to be fully in your power and fully authentic and fully sovereign and fully shining in your own light, then allow others to shine in their light. Allow others to shine in their light. Don't dim down what is natural for you to be. Don't be anything less than your natural, genuine, true, proud self. But you don't have to take others down in order to be that. So, that's just a piece of wisdom that I have to give you here. And I would say in my, 22 years of being on this planet, I think that I'm very, very wise for my age. So that's what I will honestly say. So, being, with being in the energy of self-love here, self-love is very, very, very important. And being secure within yourself. being secure within yourself, not taking others down, and knowing that you are good enough. You don't need to prove yourself to anyone. It's like when you say, "Oh, look how beautiful I am! Look how good I am! Like, did you notice how good I am?" Like it's this, and be aware of this. That it comes from a place of insecurity. Okay, look at it, and realize, okay, this is me feeling insecure, so I'm trying to command the attention. Like, no, at best, Leo is expressive from a secure place, just purely and authentically expressing who it is without trying to command attention with being its ego with all this. Because you can easily get into your ego here. It can easily be in your ego, and that's very, very important for Leo to recognize this when they do get into their ego. So not outshining others. By, if it is natural for you to be proud and radiant and confident and all these kind of things, then, by all means, be that. But if you are seeking the attention and, an energy vampire and sucking the attention out of the room because of this insecurity with you need all the attention to be on you because you don't feel enough validation and love within yourself, then that is another thing. When you give yourself enough love and validation, you don't need it elsewhere. You don't need anyone else to validate you. You don't need, all that to, get the better of, you and, who you want to be in your life. And it's about just being naturally and authentically, who you are without being obsessed with needing the spotlight. And when you are authentically and naturally who you are without putting on airs, without trying to command the spotlight, you naturally let others shine. And one of the lessons of Leo is letting others shine as well as you shine. Like, understanding that everyone, including you, is worthy to shine. The world is set up so that we can live in our souls and not our egos. And the world is set up so that if we operate from our egos, we do not live successful, happy lives. This is the thing with money. Is, being in our souls, using it for what our soul satisfaction, not what our ego, wants. And I just really, really have a, strong, dislike against anyone who uses money, or is, very, in their egos, namely Donald Trump, our president right now, who is very, very much, in his ego with what he is doing out into the world and what he is putting out for himself with, being all, he has a Leo rising, Mars and Leo in the 12th, he is very, narcissistic and, and when we get into our ego, everything is complicated. We made this world such a complicated, miserable place because of the ego. If we were just living from the soul-centered place, using as the ego as a guide to the soul, the whole world wouldn't be so darn complicated. It would be a simple, more beautiful, more peaceful place. And I want to recognize any time in my life when I am not making it that. And I want to be an example and an ambassador and, sort of a role model and a sort of a, again, doing my part to make this a better, more harmonious, more soul-centered world where everyone is allowed to shine their light, where everyone is allowed to be authentic. And, this is sort of my, I guess my amendment, my, apology to those who I have, not been the kindest to when it comes to doing what they want to do, and I rejecting of that. This is kind of, me making amends and saying, that you are perfectly worthy, and now I understand that everyone is worthy to shine, and I don't need to be, on a high horse about, commenting, because really, again, comments are just written words. Very, very different than actually sitting down and having a conversation with somebody. So, um, this didn't come because somebody was forcing me. This came from, my contemplation and my reflection and my coming to a place of deep, wisdom and self-understanding within myself. So anyway, I thought that I would make this video, about this. Thank you for tuning into this long, extended episode on the Moon in Leo in the natal birth chart. I will see you back tomorrow for the Venus and Capricorn episode. Another episode where I am yet again, tying up loose ends and catching up with the previous podcast episodes that I didn't do this week before I get into your Blue Moon, Full Moon, Sagittarius videos. Anyway, that is all I have to say. And until next time, this is me signing off from the Cosmic Sky Podcast. I hope you found value out of this. Come from a place of truth and love within yourself. And, anyway, bye for now.